Rules Committee come to order, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're getting back to our old self of meeting late at night, and I know there's just a lot of anticipation in the air up here, Louise. A lot of excitement. Boy. Tonight, the Rules Committee will consider H.R. 1314, the Bipartisan Budget Agreement of 2015. This bipartisan agreement accomplishes a number of important goals. First, it protects the American economy from default by lifting the debt limit through March 2017 and avoids a government shutdown by adjusting spending caps through FY 2017. Republicans have fought to hold down discretionary spending, which is currently below 2007 levels. But in order to get our fiscal house in order, we must tackle main drivers of our debt, which is mandatory entitlement programs. That's why this agreement includes significant long-term savings from structural entitlement reforms to a Social Security disability insurance program, as well as Medicare. This includes a $168 billion advantage for us in long-term savings from the Disability Insurance Trust Fund will strengthen long-term solvency of Social Security. This represents the first significant reform to Social Security since President Reagan. It also provides more than $30 billion in entitlement savings over the next 10 years, plus billions more outside the budget window, all while preventing a dramatic spike in Medicare Part B premiums for millions of seniors. Third, this agreement will adjust spending caps for FY16 upwards by $50 billion and upwards in 2017 by $30 billion, equally divided between defense and non-defense spending. This is a significant bipartisan, bicameral, and significant agreement that we have made with the administration. The additional funds in this package are for our Defense Department, the men and women who protect our country and their families. And it's vital at a time of global uncertainty, as we know exists not just today, but increasingly tomorrow and in the coming days. Our United States military needs additional funding to do its job, to perform the things that are necessary to give the men and women who go into harm's way every day to protect our country. So we worked with the president. The president worked with us. We've worked with Democrats, we've worked with senators, and we're working with each other tonight. This package delivers on that agreement. Finally, this agreement dismantles yet another provision of Obamacare that is harming American workers and employers. Specifically, it eliminates the law's auto-enrollment mandate, which forces workers to automatically enroll, not so much forcing workers, but forces the business to auto-enroll people who have not specifically provided feedback about who their insurance would be handled by. So in employee-sponsored health care coverage, employers need an opportunity to be able to have to speak with that employee as opposed to automatically enrolling a person that would place that person also perhaps at a disadvantage by being in a plan they may not have selected. Tackling tough issues like the debt ceiling, government funding, and mandatory spending programs is hard. But it has to be done. And this package here tonight is one that I believe addresses those issues. As you all know, we had to take a pause this evening of several hours. And while we awaited feedback from the Congressional Budget Office, we began tackling these issues internally to make sure of not only how we would understand these issues, but what the implications mean. And tonight, in just a few minutes, I will provide information about how we're going to look at these issues and how we're going to make sure that budget cap relief is fully offset. Before I go further, I would like to defer to the gentlewoman, the ranking member of the committee, Mrs. Slaughter, to see if she would wish to make an opening statement prior to
Very brief. I just
Gentlewoman's
want to say
recognized.
that it was a real joy to see people working together, a bipartisan effort here, which we very much appreciate. Nothing's perfect, we know that. But let me speak for myself, and I hope the rest of our side here that we will be supporting the rule and the bill on the floor tomorrow. And we'd like to now just get on with it.
Well,
And I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say that, am I right?
well, then we'll just go straight to it then.
Then let's do it.
I'd like to just say, I'd like to thank you, Mrs. Pelosi, and your members, and we're just going to get right to it. Does the gentlewoman wish for me to provide a breakdown of additional information as what would be considered a witness on behalf of this deal? Or do you simply want to go to the, any?
Members, would you like to hear a breakdown? Thank you. We're pretty broken down already.
Okay.
We've had no
That's-
dinner. We've not eaten anything since lunch, so we're better
Yes,
close
ma'am.
to breakdown
Yes,
as
ma'am.
you can get.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call a witness that we have for an amendment to this, the gentleman from South Carolina, the gentleman from Florida. Mr. Clausen would be asked to come to the witness table, and I appreciate both you being here. Mr. Clausen, please feel free to join us. You look awesome. Ms. Clausen, you had sought with Mr. Mulvaney and asked to come to give testimony tonight on amendment. Without objection, anything you have in writing will be entered the record. We appreciate you being here. We have an awesome stenographer. The gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Mulvaney, is recognized.
I thank the chairman, as always, for the courtesies extended in this committee. I will be respectful of your time, especially given the hour and the circumstances. That said, I don't know if I've ever had a chance to come to the table this quickly. I've never come on a bill where there was no one willing to speak in favor of the bill, so I appreciate the opportunity to go first. I don't like this deal very much. I don't care for the process by which it was created. I really don't like the fact that I'm asked to vote tomorrow on something that I was presented for the first time this morning. So I'm doing something that I think a lot of people thought that myself and other folks who think similarly to the way I do thought was never possible, which is I have an amendment which is essentially a clean debt ceiling increase. We called CRS and said, look, we're not interested in doing something for a period of time. I don't like that. It gives way too much authority to Treasury to do it by a period of time. And simply asked, look, what's the equivalent of a 3-month debt ceiling increase? And they said it's $498 billion. The amendment before you would increase the debt ceiling by $498 billion for 3 months, effectively 3 months, if you believe CRS. And also make certain provisions for what might happen if we don't raise the debt ceiling 3 months from now, giving the ability for Treasury to prioritize payments that the Financial Services Committee has already received testimony on, that they would do anyway, that they would prioritize payments. They could prioritize payments. We have testimony in Financial Services that they've actually reached out to the New York Fed, who handles payments for Treasury, about possible prioritization. So this would simply codify what appears to be the practice of Treasury. So that's it. It's a complete strike and insert. Get rid of all the stuff that is in the existing amendment and says, look, let's raise it for 3 months. Let's give the new leadership team the opportunity to work from scratch. Let's take this deal that has been airdropped on us without going through a single committee at the last minute, and that probably represents the very worst of who we are, with respect, Mr. Chairman. And you know that none of this is personal to any of the individuals involved, but this is the very worst of what we do. We've asked for 18 months what our plan was for how to raise the debt ceiling. We had no answer until this morning. Even if you like the bill, I hope that you would revolt at the process by which it was presented to us, because it's just wrong. It's absolutely wrong. In fact, it's inexcusable. I understand that that one of the reasons that the Speaker that one of the cases he made to the president was that he did not have the votes for a clean debt ceiling. That the reason he had to negotiate this deal with the president was that the votes did not exist in this body for the clean debt ceiling. That may be. That may not be. The one way to find out is to make this amendment germane, to rule it in order and give us a chance to vote. It may fail. And if that is the case, then the Speaker was right. And the votes did not exist for a clean debt ceiling increase in the House of Representatives. If he was wrong, we've all been wrong. I've been wrong several times today. Nothing ashamed about that. But if he's wrong, it gives us a chance then to raise it on a temporary basis and allow the new leadership team, whoever that might be, to negotiate a deal that we can support with great enthusiasm, as opposed to doing what we're doing now, which is looking for 30 hapless souls to vote for this thing on our side of the aisle. So with that, I would, again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity, as always, to voice my opinions in this committee.
Ms. Mulvaney, thank you very much. Ms. Clausen, welcome.
I also express appreciation, and look, as I always am, y'all know, I'm going to be very direct. You know how much respect I have for you and Vice Chair Ms. Fox and the ranking member. All three of y'all know I've got respect for you. So I therefore hope that you will accommodate my directness. I know I'm going to get the question, did you vote to shut down the government? Did you vote to shut down the government? I really didn't know before I came to Congress that I'd be given last-second deals, impossible to properly absorb, impossible to properly get the feedback from my constituents, and get this choice to take it or leave it. And if I leave it, I have voted to shut down the government, and I'm going to get ostracized for that. That's how we govern now. The American people deserve more time. We represent the American people. And I represent my constituents. And I say the voice of my constituents should be heard. And we should have enough time to fully debate something so large besides just a few hours tomorrow. And I don't know how we do that, y'all. I don't know what other organization or business in our country would do that. Nonprofit or in the business sector. I don't know anybody that would do that. This is a cram down. This is a cram down on the voice of the American people. It's late. Y'all want to go home. I understand that. But I say, at least from my district and from Mick's district, we need to be here to say, no, this ain't right, y'all. Can't be right. Even if the solution is right. This ain't how we do my constituents. So I say, let's do this. I support this so we'll have more time to study, debate, and to do our business. I'd like to read one quote. Mr. Chairman, if you'll give me just a minute. This is from Abigail Adams. It is not the still calm of life or the repose of Pacific Station that great characters are formed. And she continues in a letter to her son, great necessities call out great virtues. Great necessities call out great virtues. And to me, one of the biggest virtues is patience. We all make mistakes, y'all, when we go fast, just to get it behind us. I'm asking for the voice of the people to have enough patience where we can show this virtue and do right by the people that sent us up here. Moreover, in my career and in my time, I've never seen a situation where the leader of the organization is about to step down and he lays out the budget for the next 2 years that he's pounded out with the other people that he negotiates with in good faith. And I have a lot of respect for the Speaker. And in fact, I kind of admire his chutzpah here to do right by his friend and lieutenant. I kind of admire it. But is it right for the organization and for the American people that the outgoing leader is going to lay out is going to negotiate and do a 2-year budget that puts our economy in the balance, and we don't even know whether the presumptive new leader has even been involved? We gonna let that happen? Are we gonna let that happen without even letting us vote on this amendment to buy more time? Y'all, when you all rule us out of order, y'all gonna say, yeah, that's okay? Representative Ryan's not gonna say anything about this, and if he does, it'll be last minute. And yet he's gonna be directing traffic in the next 2 years. I have full respect for Representative Ryan, and when he wins this, I'll do everything I can to support him. But it don't feel right to me that we let the guy that's leaving office do a budget that the rest of us have to live with, and we don't even know where the new guy coming in stands on it. That don't feel right to me. Much as I respect you all, as much as I respect both of them. And I think somebody needed to come here and say it. Because if we don't even say it, then doggone for our people, right? So I'm asking y'all the virtue of patience. Give the American people, give us time to work this for the American people. Pete's amendment doesn't give any winners and losers except for the American people, because we can take time. And if we feel like the president and this deal with the new speaker who needs to own it, and those of us that are going to live it needs to own it, then I'm okay with that. But it's hard to take a last-minute cram down where none of us have enough time to work it, and the new speaker's not even involved.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yield back.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Claus, Mr. Mulvaney, I want to thank both of you for being here. I'd like to ask that you stay there. You had agreed to be here, so we're going to have you stay there.
Oh, I thought you were dismissing us. Sorry.
No, sir, not at all. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you're here. And delighted that you're having a chance, and it's not your first time to be the rule for either one of you. I don't know that I can thoughtfully or artfully properly respond back to you, but I'm going to try to give you the best knowledge that I have. And that is, as an advocate for, as a conservative Republican, as an advocate for the changes that we were going through, I respect this conference with whatever they decide about who our new speaker will be. And presumptively, that would be Mr. Ryan. Several weeks before, we went into the election literally at the minute before it was announced, and that was not the person who would become our speaker. There was a decision made, in my opinion, some 3 weeks ago about the time that we engaged in this, and we went through in our conference and perhaps in the country a discussion about who might be the speaker, not knowing if it would be Mr. Ryan, whether he would seek that, or whether it would be others. During that period of time, the current speaker, Mr. Boehner, I believe thoughtfully said to the conference that I'm a part of and these members are a part of, that he believed but asked concurrence, and I believe it was not a vote, but rather an idea, and received what I believe was the well wishes, the belief of the conference, that he would attempt to do everything that he could do to put the new speaker, whoever that might be, in a position of strength by, if the term is clearing the barn or clearing the table or clearing things. And that not knowing what the answer would be, I certainly didn't know. I believe the speaker was trying to get a sense of our conference, and I believe the speaker received overwhelming support to say, please, since we do not know who this would be, why don't you go ahead and handle the work and leave the new person in a better, cleaner position to where I think we also understood where on December 11th, they could focus their activities on the funding of the government for the next year. I believe we're still there tonight. And so I would look back at you in fullness of opportunity and say to you, and I noticed the gentleman from Arizona, my dear friend, Mr. Schweikert, who is a CPA, who deals with numbers, who deals with the financial security of things, would understand what I'm saying here tonight. I believe that our conference several weeks ago put in order, in a motion of moving forward, that Mr. Boehner had concurrence of the conference to finalize the work, and that he would, as Mr. Clausen has said, take the final nick, take the final bullet, take the final decision in order to allow whoever, because we did not know then that Mr. Ryan, as a matter of fact, I didn't know who would be our speaker, but I did not believe it would be Paul Ryan, actually, because he had not necessarily accepted that role.
Chairman?
So what I'm saying to you is,
Would you yield?
yes, sir, I will in just 1 second. So what I'm trying to say to you is, the gentleman is very clear tonight and makes a great argument, and one which I deeply can understand, but I go back 3 weeks ago when this started with the conference saying, please do leave whoever is there a cleaner opportunity. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, is this about the former, soon-to-be former speaker, about the new speaker, or is there something that my friend from the west side of Florida that raised allows that we could not do this at another time? What's the hurry?
Well, what he's trying to suggest is that, and I have seen people, when they take over organizations, typically they like to make decisions. But this was, we were in limbo, not knowing who it would be, and a person offered a direction that our conference accepted that and said yes back.
Most respectfully, Mr.
Yes, sir.
But what is the hurry? And
I'll
do
tell you
you
what the
not-
hurry is.
Do you not agree with Mr. Clausen that where we are tonight is a cram down? I'm coming in.
If the gentleman will engage me, no, I do not, because I believe it was negotiated going back some time with the President of the United
Slaughter
States.
involved in that negotiation?
Well, Mrs. Slaughter, I think, would hopefully say, and she did in the beginning, that she believes that Democrats, including the House and Senate, and the President were involved in these things.
Well, is that everybody's understanding?
Well, no, he's calling it a
What
cram
I'm
down.
saying is, we are here now at 11:15 this evening.
Yes, sir.
I've been on hold,
Yes, sir.
as have all of the
And
members.
at my request, and I'm
Yes, sir,
sorry.
and understandably. But we've been on hold for 3 hours. Now, we come in here with what everybody understands. Very conservative members, very liberal members, is something that allows, that we all need more time to understand. And so what I'm saying is, although you've been negotiating a long time, I don't know what's in this, and I defy anybody else in here to tell me if they know, and I know there are good things, and I know there are bad things. And I believe Mr. McConnell, President Obama, Ms. Pelosi, and Speaker Boehner, and whoever else may have been attendant to the overall circumstances, have a better understanding than we do.
I believe
So all
that's a
I'm
correct
saying is,
statement.
I'm not in a hurry. I don't know what you're in a hurry about. I don't know what anybody else is in a hurry about, save the fact that we are getting ready to lose a good friend of mine and yours
Yeah.
as the speaker, and gain a good friend of yours and mine as the speaker. And I don't think this is about the speaker. I think this is about the American people and a better understanding that we should have, and we would be better in the clear eyes of day than operating in the moonlight of night.
Okay, now, I can either take that or I can respond. Which would you prefer?
I don't care what you,
Well, then I'm just going to leave it alone.
all right. That's good enough.
And I know you don't care a lot about what I think, but I do care that I would respond back to you. I won't take it that.
Mr. Chairman, I will.
I'm not trying to up the ante.
I care greatly
Yes, sir.
about what you think.
Yes, sir.
This is your committee.
Yes, sir.
And
What I'm trying to say is, but I don't want you to think I didn't respond back to
Oh,
you.
no, sir, I appreciate it.
That's my point. Okay. We now have had an additional member who walked in when I started my conversation with this panel, and I would like to welcome the gentleman from Arizona, my dear friend, Mr. Schweikert, and the gentleman, I believe, is here to testify on behalf of Mr. No, sir. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, first, I have a little chart I'd like the protocol for.
If you'll please leave that right there, we will have our clerk who will come up and get that.
I beg you to pass that out to the members.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, ranking member has slipped out. Fellow members, I know it's a long evening, and please understand, I consider you all gluttons for punishment for sitting on the Rules Committee, so we do have some great love and respect for what you do. I'm going to ask you to think about this slightly differently. You've just been basically sprung upon you a very large bill with lots of moving parts and lots of complications. I want to share with you, because we've been working on this for 3 years, desperately trying to get someone around here who owns a calculator or wants to actually think about the actual process. There is an alternative to this path. The amendment I have, which is functionally a substitute in the form of an amendment, is very simple on the surface. It functionally says interest is exempt from the debt ceiling, therefore ending this constant dance of, well, you're thinking about defaulting, you're going to damage full faith and credit and sovereigns of the U.S. government. It basically makes it very clear there's always borrowing capacity to cover our creditworthiness. The second part of that is saying borrowing can continue to exist, but it is paid back by the assets that we're sitting on. You do understand, we actually had a GAO study a couple years ago that basically said there were $829 billion sitting in federal accounts, $829 billion sitting in federal accounts 2011 and older. Next year, for 2016, our expectation is borrowing about $420 billion to cover the borrowing costs, the shortfall. We'll call it the shortfall for 2016. Half that is interest. Half that is the need for additional revenues, resources, borrowing. If you look at the charts I just handed you, the assets we're holding, the cash accounts we're holding, the MBS we're holding, we have trillions of dollars out there already. If any of us were running an organization, running a state, we would actually be reaching in and grabbing those resources instead of immediately going to the markets and borrowing more money. It is absurd, the path we're taking. There is an alternative here. And I'm heartbroken in a body that has so many really smart people that so many of our brothers and sisters around here have never sat down and started to calculate these numbers of what we're sitting on and what we're holding. The mechanics and the path we're approaching are absurd when you actually look at these charts and the actual dollars that are sitting out there. So, Mr. Chairman, I know this is a difficult reach, but it is worthy of a little intellectual capital here to actually start to look at this and understand the path we're going is absolutely unnecessary. One more time, raising the debt limits and then doing all the dance that comes with this in a functionally, I won't use the language crammed down, but it's pretty darn close to that, when I can give you a fairly elegant solution that separates interest, that makes the full faith and credit much more robust because we make it clear that that is always within the borrowing authority, and then we use our assets to cover the borrowing costs and paying those back. I have no idea why this has been so difficult to get into the common lexicon in this conversation. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, and I want to just respond very quickly. In fact, I did not go through it, but part of the assets of the United States were utilized in this budget deal, and they're called Spectrum. And there are things also that are out there that you may have been in reference to that I refer back to the gentleman from Texas, Dr. Burgess, when he spoke about the budget that Dr. Price brought to us that had a lot of appropriated money that had not been spent previously. And maybe that is, you were talking about appropriated money as opposed to assets. And it's,
Mr. Chairman, it breaks into, it's bifurcated. Some are assets, some, such as the MBS and those things that we hold through Fannie and Freddie and others. But the GAO, I think, actually used the term forgotten funds as part of the lexicon of that discussion, the amount of money we have sitting in accounts that may have said, this is going for a bridge project, this is going for this.
yeah,
But
appropriated projects.
But once it's been sitting there more than 5 years.
Yes. So I think it does fit
We
in
wouldn't
that.
sweep it back in and pay.
Yes, sir.
pay
And
for
then the last part I'd tell you, and the gentleman, Mr. Cole, is more of an expert by virtue of being on the Appropriations Committee. In fact, we have dwindled down or utilized those accounts as pay-fors a number of times in these deals. So here's what I would suggest to you. In the same spirit that I approached our other colleagues, I would say to you, in my opinion, I would love to see you, and now I would ask the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Stivers, who serves as a vice chairman of this committee, I would like to ask Mr. Stivers to, in fact, engage you on this issue. He would engage you on the budget performance, the expectation. We have several bills that are similar to this. And Mr. Stivers, as a regular part of our recurring duties, I believe was planning on doing this, and I believe the Budget Committee will understand it and have an opinion. Ways and Means Committee should understand it and have an opinion. Our new Speaker should understand it and have an opinion, and I would like for us to measure 3 times and solve once. So with respect to you, from my perspective, we'll find out what this committee does with your amendment tonight. But I would say to you, on the surface, your thoughtfulness goes a long way to us making a better opportunity to tackle these important issues. Mrs. Fox, do you seek time? Chairman Cole, do you seek time?
Just very quickly, first, I want to thank our witnesses for being here. It's as late for you as it is for all of us, so thank you for coming. Second, I want to associate myself with your remarks, Mr. Chairman. I thought you were spot on. And third, without having had the opportunity to look at my good friend from Arizona's solution, which may well be a good solution. I have a lot of respect for my friend. And also remind everybody that we live in a political world. And really, the real question is, would this be acceptable to all the parties in the negotiation? I don't know if it would be or not. I suspect probably not. And so since anything we do has to have the concurrence of the House, the Senate, and the signature of the President of the United States, I think that limits the possibilities in front of us, given the profound disagreements that all those groups have. So I can sit here and, as a member of the Budget Committee and the Appropriations Committee, give you a much better solution than I think we have in front of us. I absolutely can. I could do it on a napkin. But I couldn't get 218 votes for it here, 51 votes, and clear a filibuster in the Senate, and get the signature of the President of the United States on my napkin. And I suspect most of the other napkins we'll have presented tonight, good napkins like my napkin, I think it's a good napkin, probably would have the same problem. So I just point that out, that we're a few days away from default, although I appreciate my friend Mr. Mulvaney, because I know that was a very difficult thing for him to propose. I know that's not where his core is. But I think we'd still have the same problem in 3 months. I don't think it would be fundamentally different. And again, we live in divided government, in a system of checks and balances. I think leaders working together have adopted some things I know they didn't want to do. The president wanted a clean debt ceiling. So anyway, I think we are where we're at, and I would hope we can do a lot better going forward than we've done here. I think my friend is exactly right in trying to do that. All my friends are exactly right in trying to do that. But you know, again, I think this is where we are for now, and hopefully we can get under new leadership And we're not that far away from a new chief executive, one party or the other. I would hope we can find a better way forward. I will point out one thing, because I know everybody here, and honestly on both sides of the aisle, very, very concerned about both the deficit and the debt. While I'm not happy with what's happened, I'll take my committee, where we're spending $175 billion less in discretionary spending than we were in 2010, as a sign that people on both sides have brought this deficit down from 1.4 trillion to a still way too high, $439 billion. But we've got to get to, at the end of the day, what I know my friends are willing to do, and that's real entitlement reform to actually get to where we all want to be. We've been proposing that on our side of the aisle in 4 consecutive Ryan budgets and now a Price budget. I've got a bill with my friend on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Mulvaney. Excuse me, Mr. Mulvaney, I'm sorry, Mr. Delaney. I was close. It's late. Yeah, we don't get to do a lot of bills together, Mick, but this one I hope you'll take a look at sometime. It's a process bill. It's not a final solution bill, but it's to try and get us to get serious about Social Security. So anyway, again, I appreciate the ideas, I really do, and I think it's an important debate, and I want to thank all of you for coming here at this late hour and presenting them. But again, I think my chairman had it about right in his opening remarks. So with that, I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. McGovern.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And,
Yes, sir.
thank you for coming before us tonight. I appreciate it. Look, we are where we are, and this is what it is. And I agree with you on one thing, and I think that is that this process is lousy. Whether we want to admit it publicly or people want to keep it to themselves, I don't think anyone here really can defend this whole process, which by and large has been in secret and has not been inclusive. This is not the way a deliberative body is supposed to run. And so I think we all can agree that the process to which we got to this point is deeply flawed. There are lots of issues that I wish were included in this deal. I believe we ought to be looking at non-health insurers that are by law prohibited from offering products in the exchanges, but are being caught up in fees. But the truth is, at this point, we just don't have the time to have the kind of discussion to amend this package, to vet alternatives. We provided this like 30 minutes ago. And again, it's frustrating. I'm disappointed to see that we're asking essential hospitals, those that provide desperately needed health care to the poorest and the sickest among us, we're asking them to help pay for the deal, but we're not asking big oil companies or corporations that offshore their profits to pay anymore. In these budget deals, one of the things that frustrates me is it always seems that the most vulnerable among us are forced to contribute the most, are forced to contribute the most, while the well-off get off with not contributing hardly anything. But look, but here's where kind of and I share and I appreciate your frustration, but here's where my frustration is. You guys may be frustrated, but you're in the majority. Your party controls the House and the Senate. Imagine what it's like to be in our shoes, on this side of the aisle. We have absolutely no say in any of this stuff. And, when you say more time, yeah, that resonates with me a little bit, but we have known that we're going to have an issue with the debt ceiling for months and months and months. We know that we have known that we're going to be, facing a potential government shutdown for months and months and months. And rather than, having negotiations and discussions to try to figure out all these different alternatives for all these months, I mean, we've been voting to repeal Obamacare for the 60th time. Investigations on Planned Parenthood, all these, political messaging bills. And we have not been doing anything serious to deal with what we're faced with right now. So I appreciate your frustration, but, it's like, this is not a surprise. And where has everybody been all these months? So we are where we are. And look, you know, I don't want to see us default on our debt, and I don't want to see us shut the government down again. It was a disaster. And so, you know, I mean, some of us find ourselves in a position where, you know, there are no good alternatives, but this is a better alternative because it doesn't destroy our economy. You know, and I don't know whether the new speaker will do things any differently. You know, I think if he were as outraged as you are, I mean, he would be here tonight saying this is a bad idea. But I mean, that's something you're going to have to decide, you know, when you vote on Thursday. But you know, you're here too late, and I just hope that when we get beyond this, that maybe we can work together in a bipartisan way to figure out a way to make this process better, so that we're not making these decisions at the last minute, and we're not having bills put before us where none of us have really read them because we just got it 30 minutes ago, and deals are being struck behind closed doors in secret. But you know, I think we're in a situation where there are really no good alternatives, and in that case, I'm gonna vote in a way to not default on our debt and not shut the government down. But I appreciate you being here, and I yield back my time.
Chairman yields back his time. Thank you very much. I would add to the dialogue here that probably 2 weeks ago when we were off for that week, I saw several reports that the President of the United States had Democrat leaders to the White House to discuss this, which was consistent with my belief that Speaker Boehner was engaged in those decisions on a bicameral, bipartisan basis with the President of the United States and the administration to get a deal, Is there any Republican that seeks time? The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say to the gentleman from Arizona, per the chairman's recommendation, I look forward to engaging with you on this. I find this to be a creative, interesting idea. I don't know what will happen tonight, but regardless, going forward, I would look forward to engaging with you on this idea.
Look, I'm elated on that. The reality of it, we've had this proposal for 3 years. And as many of you have heard me stand up in conference on our side, my frustration of someone listen. There are members here, like yourself, who are engaging in intellectual capital on ideas that actually get rid of this sort of binary of take a really crappy deal or don't and default. The reality, there's other ways to get there and accomplish the same good goals. So if this sitting in this room right now sparks a little interest from fellow members on both sides who understand there are other financing mechanisms that we are going to have to start to engage in with the baby boomers retiring, because this is only about to get much worse, then maybe it's time to actually start to have these types of discussions. So thank you. Thank you for the inquiry.
It just rings true to me that that's what our constituents back home do sometimes. Sometimes they sell an asset when they need to pay a bill. So I look forward to engaging with you. To the gentleman from South Carolina, and the gentleman from Florida, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for your creative solution. I do have one quick question because it was unclear to me. Is this a amendment, if it were substituted in the bill, you would actually vote for on the floor?
That's correct, which I think takes a lot of people by surprise. In fact, I think one of the reasons we are where we are is that the Speaker was negotiating under a false premise, and the premise was that there were no votes in the House for a clean debt ceiling. That's what this is. And what I'm telling you is, you make the amendment in order, and the order passes, or the amendment passes, I'm voting for it, along with many of the folks who are similarly situated to where I am. This is
So at
news
least
to
two
everybody.
votes here in this room at least. We got that going for us.
You got more than that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
if I may, Mr. Stivers, thank you very
Yes.
much. If we're going to wrap up, Mr. Sessions, I'd like to address very briefly the various things that people have said, because Mr. McGovern sort of hit the nail on the head. He said it's too late. It's not too late. It may be too late with respect to my friend from Arizona to take up a brand-new idea that gets to the very heart of the matter and deals with asset sales and all that. It's a clean debt ceiling. We voted on this half a dozen times since I've been here. It's something that y'all have voted for. It's something that many folks in this room have voted for. It's something that our speaker has advocated for in the past. I've been here before and have been told that amendments that I had offered couldn't be in order because they would pass. I'm here tonight probably going to have this one ruled out of order because people think it won't pass. There's no harm in making this in order. We go to the floor, it passes, and what everybody says they wanted to do in the first place, you get a chance to do. It goes to the floor and it fails, you get a chance to do what you're going to do anyway. Mr. Cole, you may be right. You may be 3 months down the road and we may be having the same problems, but at least we have 3 months to figure out what's in this, or 3 months to figure out if we could do a little bit better.
Yes, sir. And I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that. And I think,
the time.
I, with great respect, and Mr. Clausen additionally, I think I laid out what I believed was the evidence that I came into this for, and we will find out where we are. Does the gentleman wish to be recognized again?
Very quickly.
The gentleman's recognized.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I think that, I don't think a lot of us knew that we were going to vote on something so big that did not have an owner. This bill will not have an owner in several days. Leadership requires ownership. There is no other way. And I think if all of us would have known that this was going to happen right before one leader leaves and the next one silently steps into his place without a position on the bill, I think, Mr. Chairman, we might have had a different conversation at the conference that we refer to in the past.
Yes, sir.
I never thought I'd vote. I never thought I'd want a clean CR, but we're put between that and this bill that's going to grow the government.
Yes, sir. And once again, going back to our prior conversations, I felt like we were on a pathway. You are, all three of you, welcome not only come back to Rules Committee. I respect you being here. I would go back and defer back to a conversation that we had here earlier. I believe that the gentleman, Mr. Stivers, will be working with me and will issue on his own accord an opportunity for this conference and other members to be able to approach the Rules Committee on ideas that they have from the budget process positions. And I want to thank all three of you for being here tonight. And you're either excused or you can sit around and watch, but I want to thank you very much. I don't know. I want to thank all three of our witnesses and then go to the next witness, the gentleman from Florida, gentleman Judge Hastings. Gentleman's recognized for the purpose of an amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I have two amendments. One that I will withdraw at this point, which I consider something that most members in this body would consider important to every member of this body. And I just raised the subject momentarily. I don't know, and I'd ask Mr. Stivers and my good friend, Mr. Collins, to listen to me for just a minute. In 1952, the members of this body passed a tax credit that every member in this body presently has available to them on their Internal Revenue Report. Since that time, that tax credit has not been raised. Since 2009, no member of this body has received a COLA. My friend, Mr. Byrne, and I have had a considerable amount of interface with federal judges who at one time were very much tied to the Congress for purposes of their own raises. I receive a lot of criticism both in my congressional writing and among many persons in our overall political world. regarding the concerns about pay. I wish to make it very clear, I'm very satisfied with the pay that I receive. Like many of you that have Horatio Alger stories, I too have a similar story that I shan't repeat here this evening. To make $174,000 in an economy where a lot of people are not making $30,000 and a lot of people are working 3 jobs, certainly a lot more are working 2 jobs to just make ends meet, then I would argue that there's no reason for me to complain if you look at it from that perspective. I won't go into great detail, but suffice it to say that those federal judges who ultimately unhooked themselves for a second time from the United States Congress are now making $224,000 a year, which they rightly deserve, and which, quite frankly, they deserve a great deal more. And so do the members on this Rules Committee, not because we work as hard or harder than most members in the United States House of Representatives, but because we have this great privilege. But when those persons in 1952 brought forth the tax credit, they had in mind that people had to eat and they had to live here as well. I carry you all the way back to the founders for a minute, if you will. They lived in boarding houses. Perhaps somewhere along the line somebody should have built a dormitory for congresspersons, but they did not. Now, I'm going to leave it at this, and I'm not going to raise that particular issue. But I want you to know full well that it is a mistake for us to continue down a path toward elitism that will allow only for very wealthy people to serve in the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. Mr. Chairman, I will withdraw that amendment after my soliloquy, and I do have an amendment at this time that I would like to offer.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I understand the concerns that have surfaced in recent years with some hospitals purchasing off-campus physician practices, relabeling them as outpatient hospital departments, and I quote them, that's what they call it, down in Florida. And billing Medicare for higher outpatient hospital payment rates. However, I urge that we must remember there are healthcare deserts across this country where some of our most vulnerable populations reside. They ain't all black, they ain't all white, they're not all Native American, they're our citizens in this country. If we allow these hospitals to write the future of our entire country, there will be an unintended consequence of leaving an enormous number of people without access to health care. Mr. Chairman, I ask that the committee make an order, my amendment, that would exempt hospital outpatient departments and provide access to essential community services for our low-income, uninsured, and vulnerable populations. They live in West Virginia, they live in West Texas, they live in West Florida, they live in East Ohio, they live in the Delta in Alabama, and there may even be a few in the state of Washington. They live in North Carolina and a lot of places. And Mr. Chairman, I think that this amendment should be made in order.
Will the gentleman yield?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to state for the record my support for Mr. Hastings' amendment. As I said when I had a chance to speak a little while ago, that one of the frustrating things about this deal is that we're asking essential hospitals that provide desperately needed health care to the most vulnerable populations, we're asking them to pay more at a time when they really can't. And there are certain interests in this country that are being asked to pay nothing. And, you know, if You know, if I were sitting at the table negotiating this deal, I think we would have insisted that essential hospitals not be required to pay anymore. I mean, they don't have the resources to do so, and we expect them to provide good quality health care to the most needy, so and to the most vulnerable. So I think Mr. Hastings has an important amendment, and I urge my colleagues to support, and I yield back my time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would choose to engage the gentleman on his amendment? Seeing none, I will now close this hearing portion of Senate Amendment to H.R. 1314, Ensuring Tax-Exempt Organizations' Right to Appeal Act, Bipartisan Budget Agreement 2015, and would defer to the gentlewoman for a motion from North Carolina. The Vice Chairman of the Committee, the gentlewoman, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee grant a rule providing for the consideration of the Senate amendment to H.R. 1314, the Ensuring Tax-Exempt Organizations the Right to Appeal Act. The rule makes an order or motion offered by the majority leader or his designee that the House concur in the Senate amendment with the amendment printed in Part A of the Rules Committee report, modified by the amendment printed in Part B of the report. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the motion and provides that the motion is not subject to a demand for division of the question. The rule provides that the Senate amendment and the motion shall be considered as read. Finally, the rule provides 1 hour debate on the motion, equally divided and controlled by the majority leader and the minority leader or their respective designees.
Now heard the motion from the gentlewoman from North Carolina. Is there amendment or discussion? Gentleman from Florida.
Amendment to the rules. I move the committee make an order and give the necessary waivers for my amendment to the House amendment, to the Senate amendment, to H.R. 1314, my amendment number 4, which would exempt from the bill outpatient departments of hospitals with high uncompensated care that also provide access to essential community services for low-income, uninsured, and vulnerable populations as identified by Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program Payment Access Commission.
Now heard the amendment. There's further discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Gentleman's recognized.
it's not lost on me that when dish payments went away under the Affordable Care Act, some of the hospitals in my district didn't fare well. I would say to my friend that while I will oppose his amendment, I would be happy to work with him to solve this issue. I don't think allowing needy hospitals to game the Medicare system, buy out docs who are providing even more care for even less money, and pay them more just because the rules are bad. But I take the gentleman's point. I don't imagine the president would have signed off on this deal if he believed it was going to have that impact. And if there's something we can do in a bipartisan way to address that, I would be happy.
Gentleman yield.
Be happy to yield.
I certainly respect that, and I look forward to working with you. One thing Mr. Woodall and I have agreed upon, if he and I were left in a corner of this place for a couple of weeks, we could probably work out all of these problems. Thank you, Mr. Woodall.
Further
Yield back, Mr.
discussion.
Chairman.
Thank you very much, gentleman. Yields back his time. Further discussion. Seeing none, vote now be on the Hastings amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Gentleman asks for a roll call vote.
Ms. Fox?
No.
Ms. Fox? No. Mr. Cole? Mr. Cole, no. Mr. Woodall? Mr. Woodall, no. Mr. Burgess? Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Stivers? Mr. Stivers, no. Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins, no. Mr. Byrne? Mr. Byrne, no. Mr. Newhouse? Mr. Newhouse, no. Ms. Slaughter?
Aye.
Ms. Slaughter, aye. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Mr. Hastings?
Yes.
Mr. Hastings, aye. Mr. Polis? Mr. Chairman?
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 9 nays.
Amendments not agreed to, not agreed to. Further amendments or discussion. Vote will now be on the motion from the gentlewoman from Grandfather Community, North Carolina. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, the ayes have it. And the gentleman from Oklahoma, Chairman Cole, will be handling this for Republicans.
And I'll carry for Democrats.
and Mrs. Slaughter for the Democrats. I want to thank the committee for their hard work. I have already previously indicated my thought to the staff and to the Congressional Budget Office, who's worked overtime to try and make this effort good. I want to thank all the members for their attention, and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. This ends our meeting for this evening.